Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. We have a couple more still coming in. All right, well, welcome. Everybody have a nice week off. Enjoy some free time.
I did. Thank you.
So welcome to Concepts of Leadership and Collaboration. So my name is Jennifer Martinez. I will be your instructor for this next 12 weeks. And I'll tell you guys a little bit more about me in a little bit. How many we got? So we're still missing a couple. There's Corbin. I believe I recognize a couple faces. All right, so we are missing a couple. So again, my name is Jennifer Martinez. I am going to be your instructor for the next 12 weeks for Concepts of Leadership. So today we are going to go through our orientation. We'll do a review of the syllabus, and then we will go through chapters 4 and chapters 12. So just going to go through some information today, get everybody set up for success for the term. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you guys can see the PowerPoint that I am referring to. Also need to keep this up because we are missing a couple. All right. Nope, I did not hear. Did I hit share? I hit share. Everybody can see the PowerPoint? Yes?
Yes.
All right, perfect. All right, so we'll get started. I know a lot of you have already had online courses, probably have seen this PowerPoint numerous times, but we are still going to go through it. So online learning, right? So you obviously need to have your computer, you need to have internet access. We're going to use, this online platform for classes. Allows me to interact with you, allows me to provide guidance, lead learning activities, give you guys feedback about your progress within the course. You will have weekly homework assignments, as well as learning activities, quizzes, and exams. And so just like on your on-ground courses, you will be required to turn those in on a weekly basis by the due dates. And then, of course, you get to interact with students from other campuses within your online courses, right? So that's pretty cool too as well. So again, I am your online instructor for this 12 weeks. So any concerns, any issues that you have, please reach out to me directly and let me know in your announcements. You have access to my email address. You have my cell phone number. You can message me through Canvas. You can message me through direct email as well, whatever is easier for you. I will be the one, if, of course, if I can't handle, if there's a specific issue that I cannot help you at my level, we do have a course lead. Her name is Dr. Tenza. Her contact information is in the Canvas shell as well. And then of course there's Dr. Brown, who is the online dean, which, that would be the next level after myself, and then Dr. Tenza. Oops. Get over here. If you have any issues regarding computer access, course questions, gradings, again, you're going to start with your instructor. Oh, I pulled up the wrong. This is Dr. Dr. Marvel. I'm going to stop sharing for screen. And I'm going to pull up the other one so you can have Dr. Tenza's information. Maybe. Dr. Tenza. There we go. Come on, computer needs to work with me here. There we go. Don't want to give you the wrong contact information. It won't help. So Dr. Tenza, and then of course, Dr. Brown is the online dean of nursing education. So her email is darlene.brown@fortiscollege.edu, and her phone number is there as well. And then of course, you have access to your online or your on-ground campus. So whoever your lab simulation, clinical instructors are, as well as your campus deans. So let's talk about communication. And I know a lot of you probably heard about this too. Be courteous, be positive, be respectful, be mindful how you express humorous or emotional statements, because they can be misinterpreted. Keep your comments relative or relevant to the discussion topic. Be considerate of others' experiences, feelings, perspective. Use proper language and titles, no slang, and do not type your messages in all caps. That does give the impression that you are yelling. And it is okay. Everybody is not going to have the same opinion. They're not going to have the same thoughts and feelings about specific things. The best thing that I can say is just, be respectful in how you present opposing topics. We do have specific start and end times. So we will be present in class from 2:30 to 5:15 on Mondays. The only exception will be Memorial Day, and that's why your schedule was adjusted, so we can make up for those hours and not have to do an extra day. All your quizzes and all your tests will be done during class times, so there won't be any outside of that. These are mandatory, just like your campus classes are. So you must be present, camera on, in front of the camera. You should be, at home. You should be, not in a car. You can't be in a car. You can't, be, if you need to be on campus, you can be on campus as well. Course activities, there's discussion questions, there's projects, there's papers, case studies, discussion boards. Your first initial post must be completed Wednesday by midnight. And then respond to 2 of your peers by midnight on Sunday. And then the due dates are according to the syllabus week. They are already posted. So you have all of your due dates for this term already listed within your Canvas shells. And there are, tips and stuff and how to be successful in those discussion questions as well. All right. Standards of professional conduct, academic integrity, all incidences of academic dishonesty and violations of academic integrity will be disciplined. And so some of the areas that we're looking at: cheating, plagiarism, which is submitting the work of another person for credit, or failure to properly cite references for any work which is not original to the student. That also includes copying other students' work, or allowing another student to copy your work, unauthorized use of notes or materials in exams, including talking to other students, forging or altering assignments, unpermitted collaboration, giving or receiving aid on a take-home exam or other academic assignment under circumstances in which a reasonable person should not have known that such aid was not permitted, allowing others to copy or use work that is not his or her own, providing answers from graded assignments to others. Any questions about cheating? So when we'll get to exams and how the exams are set up and the requirements for testing. The American Nurses Association Code of Ethics for Nurses, right? It is a succinct statement of ethical values, obligations, duties, and professional ideals of nurses individually and collectively. It is the profession's non-negotiable ethical standard and expression of nursing's own understanding of its commitment to society. So you know, ethical practice starts now while you're in school. It doesn't start when you graduate and pass your NCLEX. And I know a lot of you hear a lot of, or have, gone online and you've seen things like Sudoku, Course Hero, things like that. Any of these sites that promote cheating, it obviously is not going to go along with the ANA Code of Ethics for Nurses. And not the college, is monitoring those sites. So if you are found on those sites, that will place you on heightened monitoring of your work for academic integrity violations. Referencing these sites or submitting work found on these sites will result in a 0 for the assignment, which in some cases can be enough to cause a course failure. A second incident involving these sites will result in course failure. Utilizing these sites, either posting or downloading, will also put you at risk of being dismissed from the program. And so again, here are some of them, like your Sudoku, your Course Hero, Stuvia. There's a lot more that are out there. And so again, posting, downloading, using those as references for your assignments is forbidden. My suggestion is you don't use them, especially, even where it says referencing these sites or submitting work found on these sites. As far along as you guys are in the program, using sites that have a .edu, .org, those sites are going to be the best ones for you to use in referencing any material that you need for papers, assignments, things like that. Make sure you submit your assignments on time. Late work is only accepted with prior approval from the instructor. So let's say something happens, you have a family emergency, something else happens. Please let me know if your assignment is going to be late. If it's not submitted on time, there is a 10% deduction that will be incurred if it is up to 7 days late. 8 or more days late will result in a 0 for the assignment. And so, like I said, communication is key. If something is going on, if something happens, please let me know. Letting us know ahead of time is better than letting us know after the fact. I can do more to help you before than after. For attendance purposes, attendance is only recorded during your assigned live session time. So I take attendance when you guys log in. To be counted as present in the class, you must sign in with your full names, which everybody has done. Be on camera the whole time. So again, I need to be able to see your face. It shouldn't be pointing at the ceiling or pointing at the floor, the door, your dogs. Anyone at work or driving will be removed from the session. Anyone not coming on camera after being asked to will be removed from the session. And so we can review the log in and log out times on Zoom. So at the end of class, I will run a report from Zoom. And then attendance missed will be recorded in 15-minute increments. So if you're 5 minutes late, it's 15 minutes lost. Anyone without posting attendance 14 days in a row will be dropped without notification. So that's just standard, attendance policy across the board. So if you're missed 2 weeks of classes, then you will be dropped. And there is no makeup for missed attendance. So if you have to miss a class, again, things happen. I do understand that emergencies happen. If you're unable to make a class for any reason, please communicate with that. Especially when it looks like, if there's a quiz or a test, quizzes cannot be made up. Tests have to be taken within 7 days. So just keep that in mind. Again, communication is key. Again, attendance is taken in class by the instructor, turned over to the registrar before the end of the class day. Any early departures, tardies, class cuts will be recorded in quarter-hour increments. So your 15 minutes. And then, of course, they will be sent. They are submitted. So the campus does have record of attendance as well. Attendance for nursing courses. So those, if you miss more than 20% of the scheduled time, you will receive a full letter grade deduction at the end of the term. So again, it's why it's important, or it's so important for you to attend class. And so you will get letters, if you miss 5, 10, 15%, you will get you will get attendance letters. It helps you to kind of keep track of what's going on and how much time you are missing as well. So just be really careful with your attendance. Let's see. Some keys to success. Review work that is due each week. I don't know how, some people, I personally love calendars and planners. I write out my week, everything that I need to do within the week, to kind of give me, keep me on track. Some I have seen print out the syllabus and color code the syllabus. That's helpful for a lot of people too. So that, you can kind of just keep track. I know most of you are taking at least 3 classes this term. So there's a lot to keep track of. How many, raise your hand if this is your final term. All right, so everybody, so that capstone course is the beast too, right? So a lot to keep track of. Does everybody have their clinical hours set up for the term? Yep. All right, cool. Make sure you're doing your reading assignments each week. And of course, any interactive lessons, make sure that you're here for the live sessions. Again, they are mandatory. Make sure, this is a big one, and I can't stress this enough. Read your directions and your rubrics to all assignments before starting them. Just in my experience, and I'll tell you more about my experience in a little bit, but that is one of the biggest things. When you are getting ready to do an assignment, look at your rubric, look at the directions, use that rubric as a guide to completing your assignment. That helps you to prevent loss of any unnecessary loss of points. So it is key. Complete all your assignments, papers, your CJ Sims, your NCLEX questions, your discussion boards, all of that. So I know some people like to get things done on Sunday for the week so that they're good. I know others are going to procrastinate, and they're going to wait till the last minute to do things. Just remember those due dates. And then, of course, study and then complete your quizzes and all of your exams. I'll go through the syllabus in a minute. Make sure that you're logging into class 4 to 5 times a week. Announcements, please read the announcements. That will help to answer a lot of questions, maybe to provide some clarification and things. Again, make sure that you're submitting all your assignments when they're due, and then always look to see what's coming up. I know, like I said, I am a big procrastinator sometimes, so I totally understand procrastination. It's not the best way to do things. If you can avoid procrastinating, my suggestion is to avoid procrastination as much as possible. Keep in contact. Again, you have my email address, you have my cell phone number. You can email me through, or you can message me through Canvas. You can email me directly through my email address. You can call me, you can text me. Please keep in contact. Again, if there is anything that is going on that you may think may be a hindrance to your success, please let me know. If you need assistance with this class, I do have office hours. Those are set in stone. However, if you can't make my office hours, let me know, and we will schedule something that's more convenient. My goal is for everybody to be successful in this class. So I'm here to assist you in that process. Make sure you have a good internet connection, a good computer, a laptop, whatever it is that you're using to, for school. Get a good schedule. Try to have a nice quiet place that's free from distractions. Again, read all assignments directions carefully. So getting started. So when we look at the Canvas shell, when you're, in there, when you first log into the course, make sure that you're going through that course welcome module. You're getting started, your ebook registration, your syllabus quiz, your technology literacy check. There's the about the instructor, which has all of my information in there. Again, you can put my cell phone number into your, put my number in your phone. So if there is something that happens, either print or save the course syllabus so that you have ease of access to it. Make sure that you have the correct textbook, you have the correct edition of that textbook. And then, of course, if you don't have something or you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. And then to look, everybody do their technology quiz and their syllabus quiz. Yep. All right. Awesome. All right. So come to class prepared to discuss the concepts. So I won't throw anybody out there, and you don't have to raise your hand, but I wonder how many, and again, you don't have to raise your hand, how many read chapters 4 and chapters 12 for today's class? Okay, good job. Again, we'll have additional review sessions. I'm available for, again, I have 2 days of office hours. Those are for everybody. So it's for this class. I have another leadership class, and then I also have I forget what other, oh my gosh, community, sorry. So those are just open office hours, so anybody can pop in during those times. If you need something outside of those times, again, please feel free to email me, text me, call me, and we can set up another time. Let's see. And then of course, if there's, any difficulties logging in, that's what tech support is there for. I can help with certain things, but not everything. So tech support that's why they're there. Weekly review sessions are not mandatory, but highly encouraged. These are things that we will do outside of the class time by all of the instructors for the leadership courses. So that is one thing that we will talk about after orientation, is look just in, since a lot of you are obviously from a bunch of different campuses, if you can start, if you have an idea kind of what your schedule is already like, jot down some days and times that would be good for exam reviews. Exam reviews are going to be offered by all of the instructors within leadership. So there will be more than just mine. There will be other days and times available. But since you are my group, I kind of want to get an idea of what are some days and times that are good for you. So that gives you something to think about for a little while. And we will circle back to that. Review sessions are here to help you. They are going, the review sessions go over the topics that were discussed in the weeks prior to the exam. It is there to, kind of overview the information, answer any questions that we can answer. And, again, with other instructors, and this is one thing I have always said, I may explain something one way, another instructor may explain it a different way. How I say it may not work, right? If I took you guys and put you in two groups with two different instructors, and we both taught you, how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, for example, I may teach you one way, another instructor might teach you a different way, right? It's the same information, it's how it's presented. And so that may help in some cases. We do take attendance at the review sessions. So again, yes, they are highly encouraged. They are not mandatory. Recordings will be posted. So say you can only go go to one session because of your schedule. I will put all of the recordings from the other instructors into an announcement, so you will be able to view recordings afterwards. Yeah. Again, tutoring is available with tutoring and attending the exam reviews has significantly increased pass rates, has enabled people to get higher test grades. So they are highly encouraged. I will go through that in a minute. So here are some course and assignment grades. So weeks 1 through 5, the homework scores will be turned off. All right. So you'll just only be able to see what your KGA is. In week 6, we will turn on the homework scores. And that will give you an idea of what your KGA would be if you, did all your homework or if you missed some homework. And then in week 8, we will turn the homework scores back out, turn back off. And then homework scores will stay off until after HESI is remediated. And then at the end of the term, we'll turn the homework scores back on. All right, so we'll talk about exams and quizzes. You have to have 2 devices for your each exam and each quiz. So you'll have to have your laptop or your computer or whatever it is that you're going to take your exam on. And then you'll need to have your phone so that you can have Zoom on your phone. Please make sure that they are charged and ready to go, or on a charger. If you go off camera while in the exam, you will receive a 0 for the exam. There's no excuses, there's no if, ands, or buts. If you go off camera, you will get a 0 for that exam. Quizzes are part of your KGA. They again will be completed in class. I will be here proctoring you. Quizzes are designed to be given at the beginning of a class. You only get 1 attempt. You have 15 minutes, 10 questions. You make sure that you submit when your quiz is completed. If you take a quiz off camera, you will receive a 0 for that quiz. Quizzes again cannot be made up for any reason. You must be present in class to take your quiz. All right, so exams. I should have rearranged this. Okay. Exams are given through ExamSoft. Everybody has access to ExamSoft, right? Everybody should have no issues with ExamSoft, hopefully at this point. Again, make sure that you have a second device in order to log into Zoom. You'll sign into ExamSoft. You'll read the exam description so you know the requirements. I will give you the password to the exam via the chat feature in Zoom. When you are finished, you will click on Save and Upload. Then once you submit, you'll see you see a confirmation screen that has like a green check mark on it. And that's when you can, log out of the testing site. I know just from previous experiences, a lot of times when you hit submit, or when you start the exam, it kind of bumps you off the internet. So when you try to hit submit, you're like, it won't submit. Always go back down to reconnect to the internet. That will allow you to submit your exam. You're only allowed 1 attempt. You can't stop, you can't pause, you can't resume. If there's any difficulties like technology, if ExamSoft stops working, if I don't know, whatever it is, stop the exam, notify me. Make sure that you're paying attention to the time on your exam as well. These exams are timed. It's usually 75 minutes for a 50-minute or 75 minutes for a 50-question exam. If you have any accommodations, you need to let me know at, the beginning of the term. So soon would be easier. Just because if you had accommodations last term, doesn't mean that we know. So I definitely, if you have accommodations, please do let me know. Notifications less than 10 days before an exam may not be allowed to be granted in time because there is a process that we need to follow in order to meet those accommodations. Again, exams are held during your scheduled class time. The only exception would be written approval by your faculty and the National Online Dean. Not taking an exam during a scheduled class time will result in an absence. So lecture time is not able to be made up. Exams can only be proctored with a faculty member on campus with 72-hour notice and must be done during the scheduled class time. So, and I've had this happen. Let's say, for a fact, maybe you have, a doctor's appointment and it's closer to the campus and it's closer to your house and you need to go to the campus, or you're having issues with your computer at home, whatever the reason, where you feel more comfortable sitting on campus taking an exam and you have a faculty member lined up to proctor that exam. Again, it has to have 72, we need 72 hours, and that just allows for communication between us and the I'm sorry, that allows for communication between myself and the, campus faculty that is going to proctor your exam. All right. So again, you have to be on camera the full time while you're taking the exam. So when we first log in on an exam night, all right, you will go into the waiting room. I will let everybody in. Then we will go one by one. What you will do is show me your ID, your school ID. If you have your school ID, a driver's license, whatever it is, you must show your complete testing environment. So that's why it's easier with a phone or an iPad. You can scan your environment. I want to look at the desktop, the walls, all sides of the computer, the chair, the floor, all of that stuff. If your ears are covered, you have to be able to show your ears. If you have a religious exception, again, please ask to discuss with me so that we can make sure that there are appropriate accommodations. Don't assume that I know, each individual requirements for everybody. I want to say one other thing with your exams. No paper and pencil. So if you want to use a whiteboard, I have also seen, people take like those sheet protectors and a dry erase marker. You can use those, but no pen and paper. Okay, everybody okay with that? All right. Again, missed exams. Exam missed without prior notice that will be a 0. If you have a personal reason, then you'll get the late penalty. Exams missed due to an emergency will require documentation of the emergency, and that is submitted to the National Need of Online Nursing Education within 24 hours of the exam. Documentation must be presented prior to the exam being rescheduled, and any exam not rescheduled within 7 days of the class time will result in a 0. Okay, we do understand that emergencies happen, absolutely, but you still need to take that exam within 7 days. Contact your instructor with issues that may prevent you from being successful on an exam before the exam. Contacting your instructors with issues after you have submitted your exam has removed any ability of us to work with you. Examples. And this is just some that I've heard in my many years of nursing education. I had a family member pass away yesterday. I went ahead and took my exam. I wasn't in a good place. When should you have said something? Before, not after. I've had car accident. My child was sick. I was up all night with the baby because the baby was sick. I didn't get a chance to study. I'm tired, but I went ahead and took the test. I've heard a lot of different things. Tell me before, not after. I cannot help you after. Okay, thumbs up. Everybody heard that, right? I thank you. I cannot help you after. I can only help you before. Again, I want you to be successful. You guys are in your last term. Like, I know how much you guys want to get out of Fortis and take your NCLEX and get a job. And then how many are going to go back for your RN? Okay, right? So you want to get out, you want to work, you want to get some experience so you can come back and get your RN. Anybody want a master's degree? Come teach. Yay. So again, we want you to be successful. I'm here to help you. I can only help you if I know. I can't help you if I don't know. And I don't have ESP as much as I wish I did. That would make my life so much easier. Unfortunately, I do not. So again, before is better than after. All right. Again, read the directions. So the quizzes, all the quizzes are locked. They all have passwords. There are directions, in each one of the quizzes. They're 10 question quizzes. You have 15 minutes to complete your quiz. You won't be able to get into the quiz until I give you the password. They are listed under your modules. So each week that there is a quiz, you'll see that quiz in your module. You can also see it under assignments, under grades. So there's multiple places for you to view where your quizzes are. If you have any technical issues during a quiz or exam, and yes, I know it happens, don't continue or try to continue if you are having technical issues. Notify me immediately. Everybody know how to use the raise your hand function in Teams or in Zoom. Sorry, forgot which platform I was on. If you go down to your reactions, there's a little raise hand button down there. So if you're having an issue during a quiz, during an exam, or even in class, you don't want to yell out, you want to put your hand up, raise your hand. We can verify issues. I can go into Canvas. I can look at your log. I can review how much time you've used. I can, look and see how many questions that you saw. And then of course, if I need to, I can give you the code that allows you to re-access an exam. I will not allow a retake of an exam due to technical problems or other physical or emotional issues when the majority of all questions have been answered by the student or time has run out. Again, this is why if you have accommodations, I need to know about your accommodations. And that's why it's also important, if you have any, everybody gets a little bit of test anxiety, making sure that you're looking at that time, that you're not running out of time. With your specialty exams, so your HESIs, those are, most of y'all take them on campus, correct? I don't think anybody's using ProctorU anymore. You only have one attempt on your leadership HESI. And those are scheduled on your campus, right? So I know there's HESI week is week 11. And so your campus will send out what your HESI schedule is for that. It is 20% of your testing grade. And of course, the benchmark for your HESI is 900. Remediation is mandatory for your HESI. And so you have to complete 100% of your remediation time. And of course, the time should be spent over all your, concepts that have learning gaps, and your time is dependent upon HESI. So even if you score a 1,199 on your HESI, which gives you a conversion of 99.99, it is a minimum of 1 hour. Please note, I will harass you. Not going to lie, we'll stalk you a little bit during that week. If I see that you're not making progress with your HESI remediation, I will be emailing and texting, calling. I literally had a student get a 99.99. It was the day that remediation was due and nothing had been done. I'm emailing, I'm texting, and they were like, I'm like, I know you got a 99.9 on your HESI, but according to the requirements, you have to do an hour of remediation. If it is done, as long as it's done by 11:59 tonight, I am good with that. And so they got it done. But yes, if I see that you're not starting it, you haven't done it, I will apologize in advance, but I will be texting, I will be emailing, until that gets done. Especially when no matter what your score, because anything is better than a 0, right? And I will say that 100 times, anything is better than a 0, right? You can recover from pretty much anything other than a 0. Remediation packets are due by Tuesday of week 12. There is no if, ands, buts about it. You have to get those in. Otherwise you get a 0. So all that hard work that you put in, on, in the course and studying for your HESI, it all comes down to like, just, I know it's a lot in some cases, but get it done, get it done. Again, you must show your ID, must be on camera, face must be visible, all of that good stuff. Again, let me know if you have any problems or if you need some additional help. That's what I'm here for. Homework assignments. Review your syllabus. Look at the requirements that you're going to need to do, whether it's reading, whether it's research, whatever it is. And then put your homework on your calendar so you know that it needs to get done. Organize it. Look at how much prep time do you think you're going to need, right? A 1-page paper doesn't require as much prep time as a 5-page paper, right? So kind of, and your studying ability, what your writing ability is, pretty much by now, how it works for you. And you also know if it doesn't work for you. So you can use this time too to get some different habits started. Set some time away or set time apart so that you have time to complete your assignment, do all your readings, and then of course title the assignment per the course nomenclature, and then of course you're going to submit per the instructions. So all your assignments will be submitted through Canvas. And this is just kind of an example of a calendar. Again, I like calendars, I like planners, syllabi are great as well. Even, if you don't want to do a whole calendar, that's great too. What you can do is you can take your syllabus, and you can add dates on here, right? So your assignments are all going to be like, this is week 4. So we know at the end of week 4, your assignments are due. So you can put your due date on here, so that you remember, oh my gosh, I gotta get in and get your assignments submitted. Anybody like using calendars and planners? You can even do it in your phone. If you can set it up in your phone. Some people like that, some people don't, because then you're getting like constant reminders to do stuff, but whatever works for you is what you need to do. Again, if you have something is going on and you need to, whatever happens, let me know. I have to approve any late submissions. Again, it's still going to be a 10% reduction from day 1 through day 7. And then after day 8, it is a 0. Again, you have to have written approval from me in order to turn something in late. So please, communication is key. We have to have grades completed by Tuesday at midnight. So again, if something is going on, please let me know. Your NCLEX submissions, you will have directions for these. So the weeks that you do your NCLEX questions, there will be directions within the Canvas shell to tell you what topics and things like that to choose. So make sure that you are going through those. And it gives you the directions. Submissions must be the number of questions required on a single admission. So if it's 20 questions, if it's 50 questions, whatever it is, you must have that and you will get the score you submit. So let's just say it was 20 questions and you got 18 out of 20 correct, then your score is going to be an 18. Make sense? All right. You can repeat the questions as many times as you like to obtain a highest score before you submit. Okay. So if you, you choose your 20 questions, you didn't do so well, you can do them as many times as you want, right? Probably to get the best score. That's why, in those cases, procrastination is not going to work in your favor, right? Because then you're up trying to get to that maximum amount of points. But you can control what you submit and what your grade is going to be with those NCLEX questions. Again, does everybody know how to submit the NCLEX questions? I need to be able to see your name, right? Need to have the date, all of that good stuff on there when you submit it. Screenshots are not acceptable, so don't send me a screenshot. All right. Let's see. Again, okay. Just do what you're supposed to do. Doing more is not going to be better in this point. Paper assignments. So we do have paper assignments within Canvas as well. So you have your professional development plan is one of your papers. What else do you have? Oh my gosh, my brain. And then you have your NCSBN position paper presentation that is due. So you'll have 2 of those assignments throughout the course. Again, best thing that you can do, read the assignment details, click on it, look at the rubric so you know exactly what you need to submit. And we'll go through them as well. This is what your rubric looks like. Everybody knows how to access the rubrics. Okay, and I'll show you. We'll go through the shell. Students using unapproved websites for research on homework will receive a 0 for the first offense. For your second offense, you will be failed from the course with a recommendation for dismissal. So that's like your course heroes, Sudoku, Quizlet. If you don't know how to use your resources and learn, please contact your instructor, your campus LRC manager. They can help you. I always say the best sites are going to be your .orgs, your .edus, because that's like reliable information. CDC, the World Health Organization, some of the individual, what do you call them, like professional websites, like the NLN, the Student Nurses Association, things like that. Use the current edition of your APA manual. That is going to be key. I want to say that we are in the 7th edition for APA. I love APA. But there are APA reference tips that are in your announcements as well. Only use nursing journals, again, no Sudoku, Course Hero, things like that. Make sure you have sufficient resources and make sure that they are no more than 5 years old. Usually with, resources that are greater than 5 years, you're not getting most current practice or the most current information. Make sure that your research relates to your topic. You want to summarize. Quotations are okay. If you want to put 1 or 2 quotes within a paper, but just a paper full of quotes is not going to be the best way to do things. You really need to learn how to summarize the key points, put them in your own words. Still want to, put your in-text citations to make sure that you're giving credit where credit is due. Let's see. But like I said, there are some APA writing tips or reference tips within the announcements page. other things, make sure that you're prepared when you're sitting down to take that exam. If you have questions when you're studying, if you're having issues with different parts of or different material, whatever it is, like I said, reach out. Is there anything that you found more difficult, or challenging? How and then what are be prepared to discuss how care is continued once the patient is discharged. How can nurses maintain professionalism if they are not part of a hospital-based system? Do the requirements for a charge or for a nurse change based on the surroundings they work in? What is a nurse's accountability, whether off duty or on duty? A lot of us, we don't think about sometimes what are the ramifications of doing things that, when we're off duty versus on duty. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. A lot of information. I know probably majority of you have heard the information before. Does anybody have any questions for me as of right this minute? No? Everybody is good so far? All right. So I'm going to pull up the syllabus. Where'd I put it? It is, here it is. All right, share my screen again. Here is our syllabus. All right, so PNR 205 concepts. All right, move out the way. Thank you. Concepts of leadership and collaboration. So that's 30 hours for lecture. So out of class work, about 5 hours per week. So about 60 hours over the next 12 weeks. I'm not going to go through your course objectives, but, for obviously a lot of leadership and collaboration, management of care. We're also going to look at, things like prioritization of care as well. You have to have a 78% on your key graded assignments in order to pass the course, as well as an overall grade once that homework is added of a 78%. Your resources, everybody should have access to Success in Practical and Vocational Nursing from Student to Leader, 10th edition. And then of course your CJ Sims as well. However, in this course, we do not have any CJ Sim in this course, so all right. And then of course you have your other references, right? That everybody got your nursing diagnosis handbook, your HESI books, your Calculate with Confidence, your clinical skills, all that wonderful stuff. Then of course your other policies that we went over here are there, or we went over there as well. And so here's your grade components. So you will have 3 unit exams. The 3 unit exams are 55% of your grade. They are KGA. Your leadership specialty exam, which is your HESI, that is 20% of your grade. It's part of your KGA. And then we will have 5 quizzes for 5% of your grade. So your unit exams, your quizzes, and your HESI are your KGAs for this term. Your homework assignments, you have your professional development paper, which is 7% of your grade. So pretty significant. Your NCSBN position paper is 8%. And then your NCLEX review questions is 5%. So look at just your, basic weekly outline. So week 1, we did orientation. We will go over chapters 4 and chapter 12. And you will have discussion question 1 that is due this week. So with week one discussion question, if nobody has looked at it yet, this is, what's your name? Why did you choose Fortis? Why do you want to be a nurse? What do you help to learn? And then, of course, you want to define your role as an LPN within the nursing process, outlined by your state Nurse Practice Act. All right, so we have a bunch of different states, right? I know we have Ohio, we have Florida, we have Virginia. I don't know what any other states. Florida, Ohio, Virginia, anybody else? No. All right, so that's, different nurse practice acts, so make sure that you're looking at your nurse practice act. Then week 2, you'll have quiz 1. So we have quiz 1 next week, and then you'll have your second discussion question. In week 3, you will have your second quiz, and then your first set of NCLEX questions will be due. And so, the assignment information is loaded. However, I will provide additional guidance, should you need it. I will say don't work ahead. So, just be really careful with that as well. But the information as to how to submit your files is located in your module. Week 4 is your first exam, as well as discussion question 3. Then we have week 5, is quiz 3, more NCLEX questions. Your second exam is going to be in week 6, and that is when your professional development paper is due. Week 7 is quiz 4 and discussion question 4. And then week 8 is your NCSBN position paper, more NCLEX questions. Then week 9 is quiz 5. Week 10 is exam 3. Don't have any homework that taught during those 2 weeks. And then week 11, you have your HESI and your last set of NCLEX questions. And then, of course, in week 12, your remediation is due. All right, any questions on the syllabus? Did anybody look at the syllabi before today? Or at some point look at the syllabus? All right, awesome. All right, so any questions? Any comments? Any issues as of right this minute? Nope. All right, so
Yes,
let's
I
go ahead.
do. Did you say don't work ahead?
Yes.
Okay. I thought that's okay.
You can't work ahead because it's locked. The stuff's locked. You can't work ahead.
Yeah. So looking in the grade book, there's still a couple of you that have not done the technology or the syllabus quiz. So please make sure that you get in there and do that. Otherwise, you won't be able to access the rest of your modules. Okay, so don't forget about those. But let's go ahead and take a break, and be back at 3:40.
Hello, Professor. All right, can I ask you a question? Miara Parker said her phone died and it's not letting her back in. Can she get back in? Her phone died. Oh,
I'm back. Thank you,
Yep,
Carmela.
I got her.
Thank you.
oh, okay, all right. Okay.
All right. So let's get back. I just want to, I don't know if I can, but I want to introduce you. This is Hermione. This is my one-eyed Willie. Her older sister decided a couple of years ago that she was gonna play too hard and enucleated her. However, she is my talker. Um, just to let you know, she does say mom did that all by herself. So if you hear whining, it's usually her. She's usually trying to tell me something. Um, I love her dearly. However, some days I just want to ship her off somewhere, but so I will every once in a while just tell her to be quiet. All right. So I'll tell you a little bit about me. And then I want to hear a little bit about you. So again, my name is Jennifer Martinez. I am not Dr. Martinez. I am Mrs. Martinez. Working on my doctorate. Someday it'll get done. Just some life stuff happened, but that's okay. So I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. I don't know if I have any fellow New Yorkers on here, but that is where was born and raised. However, I well, I forgot what I was gonna say. So my mom moved me to the middle of nowhere, New Jersey. So I actually went to high school in rural New Jersey, in the mountains, in the middle of nowhere. So I went from being in Brooklyn, New York with access to everything and public transportation and taxis and car service and all that wonderful stuff to the middle of nowhere, New Jersey. They didn't even have taxis. There was no public transportation. My high school was a 40-minute yellow bus ride. It was ridiculous. Long story short, so then I enlisted in the United States Navy. I spent 4 years in the Navy. I was a machinist mate. So I worked on steam plant engines. So I worked in the engine room on the ships, not nuclear ships. I worked on steam powered ships. And then I went to school and I specialized in air conditioning, refrigeration, and oxygen and nitrogen systems. So I can work on I am licensed to work on anything from a water fountain to a industrial size unit that's on the top of some of these buildings. And then while I was in the Navy, I met my husband. We decided to get married. We have 4 adult children now. Let's see, I don't even know how old they are. My oldest is a Department of Defense police officer in Virginia. He works at Norfolk, or no, I'm sorry, he's a federal police officer. He works in Virginia at one of the military or one of the naval stations. My oldest daughter is a registered nurse. She's been a registered nurse since she was 18. So however old she is now, she's been the same. She works for Centera in Virginia, in occupational health. My youngest daughter is an LPN. She worked for Riverside Hospital, which was in Virginia as well. And now I forget what she does. She got a stay-at-home position. She had a son, wanted to stay home. So she was able to find like a health coach position. I want to say it's a health coach position. She'd probably kill me if I told her I can't remember what it is. And then my youngest is a medical assistant. So they all kind of followed in our family path. Most of my family on my mother's side are all police officers. My uncle was deputy police commissioner for the city of New York for 45 years. So all runs in the family. When I was in the Navy, I was stationed in Virginia. So went to nursing school in Virginia. I've worked as a home health aide. I've actually worked in the kitchen in hospitals. I started as an LPN, worked in long-term care. Love long-term care. I love long-term care. That is my passion. Then I went to pediatrics. I worked in peds while I went to school for my RN, my BSN. and my MSN. So I have my RN, I have my BSN, I have a dual master's. I have a master's in Master's of Science in Nursing with my postgrad in healthcare education. I also have a master's in healthcare administration. And I am currently working on my DNP in educational leadership. I've been in education since 2012. I've done clinical, I've done didactic. I've also been in nursing leadership. I started at Fortis in September of 2020. I was at the Richmond campus in Virginia, and then I was at the Norfolk campus in Virginia. And then in December, I was in the process of moving to Texas. So I was in Hampton. All my kids are in Hampton. Both my wonderful grandchildren are in Hampton. And I am now in San Antonio, Texas. And so at some point, I will finish unpacking. Try to keep the boxes out of the way. Nice little whiteboard. If anybody needs any help with math, I can help with math. But I am not going to show you the rest of my office because there's a whole bunch of boxes on the other side and in my closet behind me. What else about me? I love to read. I'm a huge Harry Potter nerd. I love Legos. I love Legos. So I have Lego. Can't really see it, but I have the night bus from Harry Potter back there. I have Legos on my desk. This is Eeyore. I have another Harry Potter on my desk. They're kind of spread out all over the place. Actually, most of the boxes that I have are my Legos that I don't know what to do with them yet because I need shelves and all that good stuff. So yes, I love to camp. Camping is life. I love being outside. I love the beach, although right now I'm like, I think I'm hour and a half from the beach. I guess Corpus Christi would be the closest beach to me. So like it's an hour and a half or 2 hours, maybe. I'm not quite sure. But I will figure that out at some point when it gets a little bit closer. What else? That's really it about me. Any questions for me before I throw everybody else out there? Oops. All right. So I'm just gonna go down the line. So I'm gonna throw that out there. Tell me your name, what campus you're from, and then anything else you want us to know about you. So I'm gonna start at the top and we'll start with Jamie.
Hello, I am at the Orange Park location or campus in Florida. I am originally from California. I'm a naval wife. My husband's in the service. I've been married 20 years and we have 3 adult children, 27, 21, and 19. So I thought now that they're raised, it's time to do me. So I've always wanted to be a nurse. So here I am.
Good for you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Marion. Where is Marion? Oops. Faith.
Hi, my name's Faith. I am in the Westerville, Ohio campus. Um, what was some of the other stuff you said you wanted to know? Sorry.
No, that was it. Whatever you want to share.
Oh, okay. That's it.
Okay. Gretchen.
Hi, I'm Gretchen. I'm from the Norfolk campus. Dean Martinez was my dean at the Norfolk campus. A little about myself. I was originally born and raised in Chicago. I'm a military wife. That's why I'm stationed here. I became a nurse because it's always been a passion of mine. And today's my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday.
Is it avian? Please tell me if I'm saying your name wrong, you gotta let me know. not here. Somebody had to jump off and I'm not quite sure. Oh, there it is. All right. Jasmine.
Hi, I'm Jasmine. I'm from the Grant MPA campus. That's it.
Okay. Derek. Is there a Derek? Nope. Miriam.
I'm Miriam Lavi. I'm from Columbus campus.
Nikina.
Hello, I'm Nikina. I'm from Norfolk, Virginia. That's pretty much it for now.
Russell. Where did
There we go.
Russell go?
So,
Oh, there you go.
I go to the Scranton campus, and I was stationed over on the submarine base over in Groton, Connecticut myself.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah.
I worked on the 688 class.
Hmm.
So yeah, so when I went to ACNR school and I was on a submarine tender. So most of the work that I did was on submarines.
Eh, cramped place.
Yeah, very, very. Samantha. Oh, she's the one that had, okay, never mind. Never mind. No. Miss Saunders, how do you say your first name?
Brielle.
Brielle, okay.
My name's Brielle, and I go to the Cincinnati campus.
All right. Corbin.
Hello, my name is Corbin, and I attend the Norfolk campus. It's good to see you again.
Thank you. It's good to see y'all. I was so excited. I was like, I get to see some of my old students. Joelle.
Hey, my name's Joel. I go to the Westerville Columbus campus.
Let's see, who did I miss? Miss Polk, how do you say your first name?
Hi, my name is Nakata. I know it's hard for people to say, so I just go by Nana to make it easy for everyone. And I'm from the Westerville, Ohio campus. And the reason I'm on two screens is because my laptop's volume is broken, so that's why you see me on two. So if you see
Okay.
one camera is off, the other one is on. But I'm just waiting on my new laptop to come.
Okay. All right, awesome. Who did I miss? Did I get everybody?
Me.
Okay, Miss Reed, yes.
My name's Sabrina. I am from the Westerville, Ohio campus, and I have three kids, a 10-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 3-year-old. They keep me very busy. Yeah, currently I am a personal trainer at a Lifetime Fitness nearby, and I'm excited to stop doing that and be a nurse. I love helping people. So right now I'm just helping people with their fitness journeys, but eventually here soon I will be helping people with their health journeys. So
yeah, awesome. That's cool. That knowledge will still help you. So that is one thing that will help you. And this Miss Parker.
Hello, hi. Hi, my name's Miara. I'm at Fortis of Orange Park, Florida. And I love nursing. I've been a CNA for about 8 years. So I love to help people.
Awesome. All right. Did I get everybody? I think so. All right. Well, it's a pleasure to meet all of you. Again, welcome. This is going to be a fun term. I'm looking forward to it. So, lots of information, lots of good stuff. So I gave you guys a little bit of time. So is everybody in clinicals on the weekends? No. Okay. Oh, this is the day class. Never mind. Who's working during the weekend on the weekends?
I have a clinical on the weekend.
Okay. Okay. Um, so just kind of looking at schedules. What I'm just trying to see. Would afternoons be better for your or your exam reviews or weekends?
Afternoon.
I like afternoons.
Time wouldn't really matter to me because I'll probably just watch them at work.
Okay. Um, so let's see. I could do, I'm gonna throw some times out there. I have like Mondays, I can do before class at like 12:30. Or I could do anytime on Wednesday, anytime on Thursday, anytime on Friday. Which days work better for you? Actually, let's do this. I'll make this really easy. Let's do choice one would be Monday at, let's say 12:30, and then we can do I can't spell, don't judge. Wednesday at 12:34. Thursday. Now remember, I'm not the only one doing them. So this isn't like, oh my gosh, I can't make these. That kind of thing. Thursday. And then I can even do all right, so I'm trying to see. All right, so I launched a poll. Everybody see it? All right, your answers are anonymous, so don't worry about that. And then just kind of put in there what days and times work best for you. And then I can kind of go and make it from there. Again, if I'm not going to fit everybody's schedule, we get the majority. And like I said, not the only one that's doing them. Other instructors will be doing them as well. So we will kind of go from there. All right, so it is a toss-up between Monday and Wednesday. 4, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13 answered. Oh, there we go. We got more. Got a couple people that didn't answer. Nobody wants to get up early on a Saturday? What's up? Trust me, I do understand. All right. So I'm going to, I'll just minimize that. All right. We'll kind of figure that out. It looks like the majority, I don't know where my poll just went. Oops. Looks like the majority are looking at Wednesday. So I'll probably shoot for Wednesday. And then closer, we'll send out a schedule for all the instructors. So we'll have a schedule put together. So that you'll have access to everybody's reviews, so that you get the max out. Again, if you need anything, call me, email me, text me, whatever. We can, set up one-on-ones or small groups, whatever. The other little bit of housekeeping, if you are a re-entry student, like I said, you don't have to call out or anything like that. But if you are a re-entry student, you are required to meet with me weekly. So if my office hours don't work for you, just again, call me, text me, email me, so we can meet at a different time, but we have to meet at least one time per week, if you are a re-entry student. And again, we'll meet with everybody or anybody, just kind of wanted to put that out there. Quizzes 1 and 2. Only quizzes 1 and 2. So this is week 2, week 3. Those quizzes will be given at the end of class. Okay. That is the only time. Quizzes 3, 4, and 5 will be at the beginning of class. Your exams will obviously be at the beginning of class as well. But again, quizzes 1 and 2, which is next week, they will be given at the end of class. So just want to put that out there so that you have it in your head that not that anybody was probably planning on leaving early, but I just want to make sure that everybody is aware. And then Memorial Day is week 8. So that's the class that we won't have class on that day. But we'll still get all the information will still be given out to you guys. So don't worry there. But all right, so let's go ahead and get started. So chapter 4 is all about the evolution of practical nursing. It's funny because coming down here, there's a couple states that still use the term licensed vocational nurse or LVN. And so it's when I keep forgetting that and I keep saying LPNs and, yeah, they're like, what? I'm like, oh my gosh, it's not that, I mean, it's just a word, but I appreciate the fact that, they want to be called correctly. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I've only been saying LPN for the last, 30 years of my career. So it's all good. But anyway, so when we look at practical nurses, again, I started off as an LPN, you know, we are, you guys are trained in an educational program, which consists of a combination of theory, your simulation, your clinical, right? All your lab hours. And then, you finish your program, you complete the required didactic and clinical hours to meet the standard, meet the requirements for your state. And then you graduate, you take your NCLEX, right? And then you can work as an LPN in conjunction with what your state regulations are. Most state regulations do stipulate that LPNs work under the supervision of the RN or a healthcare provider. So like when I first became an LPN, I didn't have an RN supervisor. I actually worked directly with, after, not in long-term care, but when I was in pediatrics, I actually worked directly for an MD. I didn't have an RN supervisor, so, I didn't still have to have supervision. That first school of nursing was founded in Kaiserwerth, Germany back in 1836. And Florence Nightingale was one of the students there. I'm assuming everybody knows who Florence Nightingale is. If you don't, come see me after class. We'll talk about who Florence Nightingale was. But she is known as the founder of modern nursing, right? Everybody should know who Florence Nightingale was. She wrote a couple books. She opened a nursing school. She opened her school of nursing in England back in 1860. Probably one of her more famous books is Notes on Nursing. Not the easiest read. It's kind of more along like a journal that she kept. Pretty interesting. I used to have a copy. I don't know if I still do. But it's definitely interesting read. As far as Nightingale goes, Florence, some of her core beliefs were that perfection, we're looking for perfection of mankind. Nursing was a calling, right? It was a commitment to mankind. It wasn't a profession. And so you'll hear, especially some of us older nurses, it is a calling. If you think about what we do, how we do it, why we do it, you have to want to do it. And I say that because so much, especially since COVID, right? COVID kind of hyped up us as those of us as hyped us up as nurses, kind of realized everything that we do for patients and a lot of people kind of wanted to get into nursing because they saw the travel contracts and the pay that people were getting as a result. And in some cases, those travel contracts, they're, still widely available. Although there is a big push for a lot of places to start pulling away from those travel contracts. But it's hard work. I used to tell students, I could have stayed in air conditioning and refrigeration, probably made a lot more money and a lot less dirty work than in nursing. Each of us has their own reason why they want to be a nurse. But you have to want to do it. You have to want to do it for the things that we do. Some of the things that we do, not everything, but some of the things we do, you have to want to do it because who else would choose this profession, right? Who works now as a CNA, right? Think of your job as a CNA or think of the duties of nursing assistants and even of nurses. And I don't separate because I really don't believe there's CNA work versus nursing work because there is nursing work. But CNA work is everybody's job, right? It's all our jobs to turn and reposition. It's all our jobs to make sure that our patients are clean and dry and comfortable. But you have to want to do it. right? Because, why else would you be there? But yes, so I really believe that, at some point in a person's life, and when they decide that they want to be a nurse, there's some sort of a calling, for them. Nightingale also was against licensure likened to a union. Although there are some states now, right, that there is unionization for their nurses. She also pushed for nursing to be a respectable vocation. Again, think of everything that we do, and it's a profession. It's not just a job. In the United States, the first nursing school was started by a pastor from Germany. It was the Pittsburgh Infirmary. It is still in existence in Pennsylvania. It's Passavant Hospital now. And then, of course, as the nursing shortage continues, a lot of hospital-based schools of nursing emerged as a cost-effective labor force for the hospital. So in those hospital-based programs, they trained on site at the hospitals. And so just like, you're nursing students, you go to clinical, and I've heard it all. We're unpaid, we're, doing their job, but we're not getting paid for it, right? That's kind of how some of those early schools were. It was, unpaid nursing work, and that's how they trained, right? That's how they got the experience in order to become a nurse at the end. The formal training for practical nursing is the Ballard School. That was the school that opened in Brooklyn, New York. The courses lasted 3 months. Most of it focused on home health care for chronically ill, elderly, and children. And before World War I, a lot of nursing was done by practical nurses in the patient's home. And so, the nurse's 24-hour schedule would be cupping, your midwife roles, leeching. Anybody applying leeches? Anybody up to, applying leeches? Well, they still do that, right? Leeching. They have a lot of things like leaching, and they've even started to use maggots in some cases as well to start eating away, eat some of that dead necrotic tissue in some of those wounds. It's actually really interesting to look at and watch. And I pray that I never have that, because I don't think I could do it. You'd probably have to sedate me before you decided to put some leeches or some other things in my wounds. So yes. Also, enemas, that kind of thing. And then by 1903, that's when the states began to really monitor those practical nursing. And so, organizations started to be developed, like the National League of Nursing, which developed a statewide system of standardization of nursing requirements for practical nursing. Right. So, this school might be teaching one thing over here and this is another. And, there really wasn't any kind of standardization. Mississippi was the first to pass a law licensing practical nurses. And initially licensing wasn't mandatory. But in 1938, New York was the only state requiring mandatory licensure. And of course, now every state requires mandatory licensure for nurses, including practical nursing. So you go through your program, right? And then you have to take that NCLEX at the end. In 1944, the U.S. Department of Vocational Education conducted a study of practical nursing. This is where they agreed upon the tasks for practical nurses, and then phrases were used to describe the LPN scope of practice. So judge, appraise, recognize, determine. And so, think of, what is it, that wonderful nursing process that we're going to talk about next. It sounds pretty much, sounds very similar to that. Um, and then additionally, the American Nurses Association awarded or moved toward 2 levels of nursing. And so we recommended that RNs graduate from a 4-year college program and an LPN graduated from a 2-year technical program. So when I went through my LPN program, it was a 2-year program. It was through it was in Virginia. It was, oh my gosh, New Horizons, which is a vocational technical high school. They had adult education program. And so we went kind of the same time that the high school student, and we went in the evening, but during like the same uh yearly schedule. So it was like September through April, September through May, and we had summers off, but it took us 2 years to complete. And then with the shortage of nurses, that's when the ANA moved, they went to that 2-year associate degree nursing program. In the 90s, the UAPs, which are your unlicensed assisted personnel, were hired to give patient care. And so, certain we still have UAPs, we still have unlicensed assisted personnel. And now they're trained a little bit. I forgot what it's going to say. A lot of your hospital systems train, right? So like there's different terms, like there's patient care technicians. So I've heard PCTs, I've heard PCAs, in addition to like the CNAs. The biggest the biggest concern with that was the legal responsibility for the RN or the LPN of the care that they gave, right? So what care are they providing? They are whoever their supervision was, whether it was LPN or whether it was an RN, right? That it was their legal responsibility for the care that the UAP was provided. And then eventually we started pulling LPNs from the community, from the hospitals back into the community, right? So a lot of times, your LPNs were working with the community levels, whether it was home care or within the community setting. The first computerized NCLEX was given in 1994. And then in 1996, LPNs were able to get a long-term care certification. Anybody like long-term care? No? Nobody likes long-term care? Yeah, okay. I should have asked who, I guess everybody wants to go work in a hospital when they graduate. Yeah. Psych. Anybody psych? Really? Okay. OB? No OB. Peds? No. What else is there? Med surge? Okay. Yeah, I'm at a loss. What do y'all want to do?
Prison.
Oh, okay. I didn't even think about prison. Yep. Hospice. Okay.
Surgery.
Say that again.
Surgery.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Flight nursing.
Say it one more.
Flight nursing.
Oh, who said that?
Faith.
Faith. Okay. All right. So you want to be ER? You're gonna start in the ER. Awesome.
ICU, ER, yeah.
Okay. I see wound care. All right. Awesome. Okay. I love wounds. Oh, I love wounds. It's awesome. All right. Um, So then with associate degree program, the goal there was to move nursing education out of those hospital-based programs to help ease the shortage by shortening the amount of time required to become an RN. And then of course, since then we have accelerated nursing programs, right? Much like Fortis and others that are around as well. Kind of just decreases the amount of time in order to get your licensure. The NLN vision statement, recognizing the role of the licensed practical nurse in advancing the nation health that helps to support the roles of the LPN. And then of course, COVID, we know put a huge strain on healthcare workforce, which led to even a greater nursing shortage. We know that, and if anybody followed what nursing was like during COVID, I worked a nursing unit during COVID as well. It was rough. And not only, of course, did we lose nurses to COVID, right? Regarding them getting ill. A lot of nurses just said, I'm done, and they decided that they were either going to retire, or they were going to switch careers after COVID. And so that even put a bigger strain on the nursing workforce. And we still have a huge shortage of nurses. Some areas are worse than others. I will I follow things like Indeed, LinkedIn, that kind of stuff. And so I will say it's interesting, just, area wise. They don't seem as short-staffed here in Texas as they did in some areas in Virginia, which is interesting. There's, and I'm sure, if you go around and we talk to people, right, it might be a different story, but just by advertising for jobs. I remember when I first became an LPN, I had wanted to work in a hospital. But right as I was graduating, they were actually phasing LPNs out of the hospitals. So I really had no choice. I mean, I did have a choice, but I chose long-term care. And I loved it. I love long-term care. My mom did a little bit of everything as a nurse. She worked for a state correctional facility down in Florida. So she did state prisons, she did mental health. Her first job was at a place called Carrier Foundation. I don't even know if it's still there anymore. Carrier Foundation was a hospital in Newark, New Jersey. It was especially a specialty hospital. So they did cancers. My mom's biggest fear as a nurse was trach care. And so her first unit was a trach unit. So they literally put her in her whole unit. It was a trach unit. So she got over her fear of trachs real quick. And then I've heard the same thing that a lot of people have heard over time, is that they're phasing LPNs out, right? Oh, their LPNs are not going to have a job. You're not going to be needed. I've been hearing that for as long as I've been a nurse. And yet we keep realizing the true impact that LPNs do have on the nursing workforce. And even working with some of the clinical facilities that I used to work with, and discussing, a lot of the hospitals are going to more of like a team-based nursing. They're going back to where you have an RN, LPN, and an aide or a CNA, a PCT, a PCA, kind of all as a team-based, with each one having their specific roles. So that team-based nursing is starting to come back into play. Of course, we know that hospitals are now hiring LPNs again. So you never know. And there's still a wide variety of areas that LPNs can work at. Like I said, my daughter, she started off as in long-term care, and then she went and she worked for OBGYN office. And then after she had her son, she thought she was going to be able to go back to work, and then she didn't want to leave him. So she was able to find a position working remotely. I think it's a health coach. I feel really bad, but I think that's what her title is. But she works with providers' offices, making sure it's almost like chronic disease management in some cases, making sure they have their medications or taking their medications or not having any issues, that kind of thing. So there's a variety of different roles that, you know, LPNs can go into. Like I chose pediatrics after long-term care. I love kids. Kids are awesome. So it really, you know, you has a whole world open in front of you and a lot of things that you can do. But does anybody have any questions? All right, so we're gonna go to chapter 12. So chapter 12 is the wonderful nursing process. And so the nursing process um is a 5-step process. It's set up in a problem-solving format. It's a nice little organized way to identify and respond to client needs within the scope of practice. It also helps us to communicate with other nurses as well as caregivers. And so back in the early 2000s, it was, you know, there, I think it was early 2000s. And so if we look at the, what do you call it? The nursing process in regards to LPN scope of practice. What is the nursing process? Tell me what the steps of the nursing process are.
Add pie.
Add pie. Okay, so what's A?
Assessment,
Okay, what's D?
diagnosis,
P?
planning,
I?
Implementation.
Okay, and E?
evaluation.
Evaluate.
All right, very good. So add pie, assessment, diagnosis, planning, interventions, and evaluation. And so how does that fit for an LPN? Because there is a different scope of practice for LPNs versus RN, right? So as an LPN, do you assess?
Yes, just not the
Question.
initial assessment, right? I said
Anything.
yes, just not the initial assessment, right?
Okay, but what do we call it? We gather
Data collection.
There you go. So we gather data, right? And so with the assessment, it's our data collection. And so I know it's kind of crazy, but that is, you know, and yes, LPNs we assess all day long, right? Go into a long-term care facility. How many times do you see an RN, right? So we do assess as an LPN. However, you're right. I think it was Joel, did you say except for the initial assessment, right?
And it's Joel,
Okay.
you said it right.
Yep. So we have to make sure that RN signs off that. For the most part, the RNs are supposed to make the nursing diagnosis. Of course, it's a collaborative effort, as is the planning, the intervention, and then the evaluation. We will give those roles. So the difference between LPN and RN when it comes to the nursing process. The RN can function independently in all 5 steps. So they can do their assessment, they can do the nursing diagnosis, they can start the planning, the interventions, and they can do the evaluation. Whereas the LPN is going to collaborate with the RN, but with data collection and implementation, LPNs can work independently. You don't need help, you know, in collecting data. You don't need help in, you know, performing those implementations. But with planning and evaluation, we're going to do that in conjunction with the registered nurse. So it's a collaborative effort. So start at the beginning. So gathering data with our nursing process, what data are we collecting?
Vitals.
Okay, vitals. What else?
Objective.
Okay. Good, Gretchen. Somebody else. We're collecting objective data. So are vital signs objective or subjective?
Objective.
Very good. All right. So objective data is quantifiable, right? It is something that we can see, touch, feel, smell, hear, taste. Ever smell something so bad you can actually taste it? Right? So that is quantifiable. We can, we can add what's that word? A numeric, usually a numeric number to it, but we can quantify that. We know it's happening. What is subjective data?
What the patient states.
Right, what the patient tells us. So my stomach hurts, I have a headache, my pinky toe hurts, something tastes funny, something smells funny, I have ringing in my ears, right? I have double vision, right? Those are all things that the patients are telling us that they're experiencing. Can we quantify that? No, right? There's no way. There's no way to be like, okay, yeah, I smell that too, or I have double vision too, right? We can't. So subjective data is anything that they tell us, of course, and then the objective data, we can pretty much quantify it somehow. Validating and verifying information is also part of this process. You want to try to always validate the data. Any information that is incongruent or doesn't match, we want to figure it out what is going on. And then, compare findings. So this is like your, assessment. All right. So you're working in long-term care, you have a patient, a new admission come in, you go in and you're getting that, you're doing that first you're doing an assessment, right? So you're going to do your head to toe, you're going to do your psychosocial, you're going to do, your cultural assessment, you're going to do all of that kind of all in one. And then the RN is supposed to come back and verify that information, right? And that's when you can compare. What if, you caught something and the RN didn't pick it up, or vice versa, the RNs found something that you didn't find. You need to be able to compare that information, make sure that everything is accurate. What do you do if a client can't provide you their history? What if you have, so let's say you have a dementia patient that comes in. Where can we get some information?
From the family?
Where they came from, family.
Right. So did they, do they have family members? Do they have caregivers, right? Did they come from a long-term care? Like, where did they come from? They can help to provide information, right? Just like when we're doing assessments on kids, right? Kids can only tell us so much information, and that's if they're able to walk in or if they're able to talk, right? So where do we get most of our information from? Caregivers. Always be, they can provide some really good information. What else? I forgot what I was going to say. Anyway, so you're going to get all your information, you're going to get your objective, you're going to get your subjective data, and then you are going to make sure that we document it. Now, documentation is going to be up to where it is that you're working, right? I forget what year it was, but, mandated that, all facilities have, EMRs, right? So electronic medical records, depending on which one you're using, is going to determine how you're going to document your gathering your, document your assessment or the information, whether it's a flow sheet, whether it's a typed out note, whether it's, drop boxes, whatever that is. Issues that we could have potentially to data collection, things like not enough time, cultural differences, culture plays a huge part in providing adequate health care, right? So we have to make sure that we're doing a good cultural assessment so that we understand what the needs are of that patient. Language barriers. So what's the best way to overcome language barriers?
Translator.
Translator, correct. Every facility has to have some sort of a translator service, whether it's on-site or remote. Before I moved to Texas, I was taking care of a patient who was deaf and only used American Sign Language. All right, so there's we had an iPad. I forget what the service is called. But he can click on, there was an availability of an American Sign Language interpreter. And so, you know, he's face to face with the interpreter, we're talking and they're signing back and forth and the interpreter is telling us what he is saying. Professional interpreters are the best key, using family, friends, things like that, not so much. Personal bias can also be a huge barrier to collecting data. Best thing is to kind of just put your own feelings aside. You know, just understanding that, you know, we are here to provide their care. And, you know, and it's always good to do a self-assessment in certain situations, depending on what's going on. That helps you to kind of understand your feelings and your thoughts about certain situations and things, and helps you to kind of just put those feelings aside in order to provide the best care for your patients. After assessment, you know, the LPN or the RN is going to develop the nursing diagnoses. And then we get to planning. So once everything is set up, we are going to start to plan those goals. How do we set up our goals? Tell me about our goals.
Smart goals.
Say that again.
Smart goals.
Okay, SMART goals. Okay.
Like realistic goals?
Realistic, right? They need to be realistic. They need to be attainable, right? So if you had a patient who had a hip replacement, right? You're not going to have them, you know, walking, you know, 2 miles, you know, by the next week, right? We need to be very realistic. I mean, they have to be obtainable. They also need to be measurable, right? How that helps us by making them measurable helps us to determine whether or not those goals have been met. Right, you know, so maybe, you know, they're up walking day 2, maybe they're you know, 20 feet on day 2, whatever. I don't remember what the goal should be for a hip replacement, but just, you know, they need to be measurable, they need to be attainable. And then, you know, how long do we think it's going to take them to reach that goal? So we also use, right, short and long-term goals. Short-term goals could be something by the end of the hour. They could be something by the end of the shift. Whereas, you know, long-term goal is maybe, you know, by discharge, or, you know, in some cases it could even be a longer term goal, right? So if you think of some of your patients that have had, you know, some of your more severe traumas, or maybe they've had more extensive surgeries, their goals might be a little bit longer. You know, think of somebody who's had open heart surgery, right? They may not be able to walk much, you know, they may even have trouble sitting up by themselves, right? So their goals may be a little bit longer. just depending on, it's individualized to the patient, right? Anybody know what Maslow's hierarchy of needs is? I'm sure everybody's heard of that once or twice, right? So Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's another thing that we are going to use when we are, going through that planning. Looking at the physiological needs of the patients, the safety, the security, the love and the belonging, the self-esteem, right? Making sure that we're kind of working all of those in as we're planning care for our patients. With nursing diagnoses, and, the nursing problems, we use NANDA eyes, right? Your, NANDA International, everybody's familiar with nursing diagnoses. What are the 3 parts to a nursing diagnosis? Anybody? What's the first part? What's the first part of a nursing diagnosis? So if I said altered
Patient's
nutrition,
health issue. Oh,
okay. So so that's my problem, right? That's my problem. I have altered nutrition.
Related to? Related to?
Okay. All right. So related to,
Signs and symptoms.
As
what is
evidenced
that?
by.
Signs and
Oh,
symptoms.
well, I don't know
No,
if
go
I should
ahead, say it again. And then what's the third part?
Signs and symptoms. Symptoms.
Right, my as evidenced by, right? So how did I come to that conclusion? So let's see. If I have altered nutrition, and I'm not, let's say I'm not eating enough. All right, so altered nutrition, I'm eating less than my body needs. Okay. Give me something that could be related to just anything.
Decreased appetite.
Okay, decreased appetite. Okay, what else could it be related? And in any number of things, right? We could have a variety, right? Maybe they have an eating disorder, maybe they have food
dementia,
aversion. Say that again.
maybe dementia.
Dementia is an excellent one. All right. And so my as evidenced by, right? So how do I know they're not eating enough? All right. So these are the signs and symptoms. These are things that we're going to see. So maybe they've had a weight loss. Maybe they're only eating, 25% of their meals. Right. So these are things that we can see. And then what do we want for that patient? Right? What is the goal for that patient?
To
If I have
increase their
someone who's
calorie
not
intake.
eating, go ahead.
To increase their calorie intake.
Okay, so we
Like
want to increase their intake, right? We
Yeah,
need them
right.
to eat.
Mhm.
Okay. So is that going to happen right here and now? No, right?
No.
It's going to be a gradual process, right? So, we will start with, what's the minimum amount of calories that they need, the minimum amount of fluids that they need within a 24-hour period, right? And then we can gradually increase. So we may start off, that may be a short-term goal to get them to a certain point, right? But then we want to get them to the max point would be a more of a long-term goal, right? So, what are some things that we can do to get somebody to eat more?
Smaller, more
Provide their
frequent
nutrition.
meals.
Okay, smaller, more frequent meals. What else?
Do you have preferences?
Food preferences, absolutely. What else?
Can we actually just sit there and feed them depending on their age?
Depending on their functional ability. So that's a fine line in certain cases because we have to look at that in some cases as a dignity issue. If they're awake and alert and oriented, then no, right? But if they have dementia or they have some sort of a disability, right, then absolutely we can assist them with feeding, right? What else? What about supplementations, right? Things
Yeah,
like
like protein
Ensure.
shakes.
Say that again.
Protein shakes, like
Protein
Ensure. Yeah.
shakes. Yeah, things like that, right? What are some ways that we can get them to increase their eating, right? Um, and then of course we're going to keep track of what their income is. And then once, we're gonna monitor them. How much are they drinking? How much are they eating at every single meal, right? And then, when we go back to evaluate, right? Are they eating the amount of calories and the amount of, drinking the amount of fluids that we initially looked for their goal planning? Now, what if they don't meet their goal? What happens then? Do we just give up?
Make a new
another one.
goal.
Make a new goal, right? We don't just give up. Now, if they've completely satisfied, and let's say they have met every milestone, or not every milestone, they've done every intervention, they've met every outcome, and we've done that evaluation and they're spot on, they're good to go. Okay, yeah, we can kind of close that one out, right? But if we have someone who isn't meeting the goals, right? We don't just give up on them. We go back and we reevaluate. We look at what we're doing. We look at what the patient's doing. We work with the patient. We identify new goals, right? And new implementation steps to help them to meet their goals, right? Kind of like a teacher and a student. I'm here to help you get to where you want to be. We're here for our patients to help them get to where they need to be as well. And however it is, constantly reevaluating those outcomes and those interventions so that we can meet or we can help them to get to where they need to be. And so it's an evolving process. And I know you guys have heard, the nursing process since day one of nursing school. But again, we're going to constantly evolve this, nursing process, so that our patients, are able to meet the goals that we're setting for them, but they're setting those goals with us, right? We're not doing this independently. That patient, that client is at the center of this nursing process. So when we're writing those goals, that patient needs to be involved in that plan of care. Anybody written a care plan yet? I wasn't sure. I know a lot of schools, you doing concept maps? Concept maps. All right. So how do you feel about concept maps? I love concept maps. Concept maps are awesome. Compared to a care plan, I will do concept maps all day long. My mom, and I wish I had them. I'm trying to think, they might still be in storage in Virginia. My mom graduated from nursing school when I was getting ready to go into high school. And so obviously this was well before computers and all of that wonderful stuff. They would have to write out their care plans, and their care plans were like legal size papers. You know how big legal size paper is, not just the standard 8 by 11. And it would literally be like 20 pages front and back, these care plans. And I actually had saved a couple. Now I was praying that I would never have to write a care plan like that, but I had saved a couple just to have a couple. So care plans have come a long way. Care plans are great. Of course, when I first started nursing, everything was handwritten, so it's a little bit different. But they are standardized for the most part in a lot of places. So when you go in and you're doing your admission assessment, and you're putting your patient problems in, you're putting their vital signs in, a lot of your electronic medical record system, your EMR system will automatically generate a list of potential diagnoses just from the information that is being entered into the EMR system. And then what the nurse can do is click off, pertinent nursing diagnoses and then build their care plan from a set data bank. The goal is that each one of those care plans is individualized to that specific person and is going to meet the specific needs and the goals of that individual client. Then in each set, you'll have different disciplines that can then go in and add to that care plan. So I'll just use the long-term care because it's easy. It's a little bit fresh in my head. So I go in, I do my initial assessment, I enter my orders, I enter all of the nursing or the medications, right? All of their diagnoses, everything. The care plan is going to spit out a list of nursing diagnoses that would be specific to that patient. And then underneath that, I can click specific interventions for that patient. So let's say they were admitted with a pressure area, right? What are some things that I would do for a patient that was admitted for a patient with a pressure area? What are just some basic nursing skills?
Two turns.
Okay. Turn and reposition at least every 2 hours, right? What else?
Air mattress.
Barrier
Okay.
cream.
Oh, say that again.
Barrier cream.
Barrier creams, low air loss mattresses, right? Pressure relieving devices, right? So, okay, maybe the patient maybe they're not bed bound. Okay. And so pressure relieving for when they're in bed, but we need other relieving devices. So if they're up in their wheelchair, right, we need pressure relieving device for their wheelchair. What else could we do? Protein shakes, right? Multivitamin, right? Might help as well. Looking at labs, right? Maybe we need to get the provider to order some labs and see what's going on there. Making sure that we have appropriate treatment in place. Wound care has come a long way. There's a ton of different options out there for wound care. Someone said keep it clean. That should be a no-brainer, but you know what? A lot of times we have to put that in the care plan. Somebody said that they wanted to do wound care. Who is that? Miss Parker said that she wants to do wound care. Wound care it's definitely takes a lot of knowledge in order to do wound care when you're looking at everything that's involved, right? It's not just about cleaning and slapping and dressing on it, right? There's so many other factors that go into taking care of wounds, right? So, these are all things that we have to look at when we're, and that's just one aspect, right? You have nursing homes have very complex patients. Hospitals, you don't know what you're going to get sometimes when you're working in the hospital that coming through that door, right? Especially thinking of patients that people want to work in the emergency room. You just never know. One day is not the same as the next, right? You just never know what's going to come in. And so you have to be prepared for everything. And then, those of you that, want to work in the ICU, you're going to get those patients that are directly from the emergency room. And so again, you never know what you're going to get. So you have to be prepared for everything. But again, with the care plans, it's all about looking back and making, helping those patients to meet their goals, make sure that they get their outcomes. Each place too is going to have a different emphasis on those care plans. You work in a long-term care facility, your care plan is really something that you are going to really have to look at and make sure that those things are implemented on the care plan. In a hospital setting with a shorter hospital stay, right, you will still have a plan of care. But a lot of times your patients may even be discharged prior to that plan of care, even, really being implemented, right? And so it's going to be a little bit different where you work. Anybody want to be a school nurse? I think people even looked away from me when I said that. Okay, so school nursing, that's different too. They do a lot of care planning in school nurses, with school nursing. You guys already took peds, right? Are you in? Yeah, everybody's taking peds, right? So no, peds wasn't fun. Okay. All right, just a question. But it's school nurses use care planning. Their care planning is going to be a lot different than a care plan in a facility, right? A pediatric care plan is going to be a lot different than an adult care plan. And so, it really kind of just really depends on where you're working and what you're doing, and how you're going to set up that care plan. Just be grateful we don't have to write them out anymore. I'm very grateful for that. I will forever be grateful for that. So, all right, any questions for me? So let's see. Let me do this. All right, so patient teaching. What are, general speaking, not any specific disease process, what are some general patient education that we can provide to our patients?
Medication adherence.
Okay, medication adherence. What else?
Stay up to date on immunizations.
Okay, stay up to date on immunizations. What else?
We can enforce reteaching what a RN is already taught, right? Reteaching.
Reinforcement. Yes,
Yes.
reinforcement. Yes. What
Diet
else?
and exercise.
Absolutely. Diet and exercise are super important. What else?
Wound care.
Wound care. Yes. So we talked about reinforcing we talked about, medication adherence. What about treatments? What about treatment adherence?
Coping mechanisms too.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, coping mechanisms. You guys took community last term, right? Right? What do we learn about ineffective coping mechanisms in community? Right? So what does teaching effective coping mechanisms help our patients? How does that help our patients?
Well, if you help them cope like effectively, then they'll be able to do like what you're trying to teach them. So like the medication adherence, they'll be able to do the correct diet and exercise. You know what I mean? If they're not
Okay.
able to cope correctly, you can't really implement anything.
Okay. I saw exactly. Okay, I see where you're going with that. What is the effect of um chronic high stress? What does that do to our bodies?
Everything. It can like shut down different organs if it gets bad enough. I mean, it causes other illnesses and other problems. So learning to cope with that ahead of the time will actually decrease your chances of having other illnesses or diseases or any secondary problems on top of that one.
Exactly. Right. So think of a situation, think of somewhere where you have been stressed. And I know it's not nursing school because I know nursing school is not stressful. You guys are all calm and okay, got a little bit of a smile. There we go. All right. So think of a time where you've been stressed. And I don't mean like you have a test coming up. Like I mean something where of significant stress, right? And so you know that when you're stressed, that initial fight or flight comes into play, right? So everybody knows fight or flight, right? Heart rate, blood pressure, respiratory rate go through the roof, right? My eyes dilate, all that good stuff happens. And our body can maintain that for a period of time, right? And it's a normal response to stress. It's just almost like you were in a near miss car accident, right? That initial adrenaline rush. And we can maintain that for a little while. But like Sabrina was saying, our bodies are not designed to stay in that fight or flight for long periods of time because it can eventually have very detrimental effects, including death, if we were to stay in a high state of anxiety for a long period of time. So, coping mechanisms, relaxation techniques, deep breathing, meditation, guided imagery, music. How many of you music is just like a great stress reduction, right? Like give me, and I know I'm old, I'm sorry, I'm gonna say it, but give me some Pink Floyd or some Led Zeppelin, and that just kind of, don't laugh. That kind of just,
I like that too. It's okay.
it's a huge stress relief for me. It depends. Sometimes some country music will help, sometimes and I like some classical music. But I'm one of those, if you play classical music, I'll probably fall asleep. Because when I'm stressed, I'm not trying to crash, I'm just trying to refocus, right? So those types of things we need to, teach them good. What's not good, right? Let me go out and buy some crack. Let me go do some heroin. Let me go drink, a bottle of whatever, right? So those are ineffective. And so we have to look at, what we are teaching, reinforcing. You're right. Positive. I love that. Positive coping skills. And that goes for you guys as students too. How many of y'all take time out for yourselves? Oh yeah, there's a big show of hands there. How many, take a hot bath once a week? Or, just kind of go to Starbucks by themselves for, 20 minutes and drink a cup of coffee. Or my favorite outlet when I was in nursing school is Barnes and Noble. That was my favorite outlet. Like my husband would get home from work, I'd be like, okay, I'm going half hour, 45 minutes, an hour, even whatever, just to kind of give myself a break. And then what about, congratulating for milestones reached? What do you do for yourselves, when you pass that class or even pass your test? I'm not saying you got to go on a cruise every time you pass a test, but do something for yourself to kind of be like, hey, I'm proud of myself for doing this, right? It's the same for our patients. And our patients meet a short-term goal, right? What are we doing to encourage them to continue to meet their goals? There needs to be some positive reinforcement, right? That we give to our patients other than like, here's another pill, here's another treatment, let me torture you with some more range of motion right now, right? What are we doing for our patients? Again, you're not sending them on a cruise, you're not getting them a cake or, having a party, but like just going in and like, hey, you're doing a really good job. You were able to do this, this, and this today. That's awesome. Let's see now, let's work together to see what the goals can be for tomorrow, right? Everybody likes to know that they did a good job, right? It's a little more quantifiable when you're in nursing school, right? Because you take a test, you get a grade, right? When you're a patient, it's not so quantifiable, right? Unless it's like, oh, I got my blood pressure down today, right? I took a couple extra deep breaths, or I was using my incentive spirometer, and I was able to walk to the nurse's station and back again without being short of breath, right? These are all things that we can celebrate. Um, you know, and then, what about teaching? I'm trying to think of what else. Parents, what about our new parents, making sure that they, have CPR, first aid training, right? How to do the Heimlich maneuver, right? Gosh forbid their kid chokes, right? Where do babies put everything? In their mouth, right? How to take blood sugars, or how to check their blood sugars, how to even do, home monitoring of blood pressures. Trying to think of what else. So there's a lot of education that can be reinforced to our clients or our patients, as we are going. And then documentation. I cannot stress this enough. Document everything. Everything. Just document. And I'm going to give a perfect example. So, as a unit manager, and I was not on call this week, so I was very grateful. I went home on Friday. I didn't have to worry about any calls over the weekend. And so I came back in Monday morning. Monday morning, I'm in morning meeting, and the physical, what do you call it? The rehab director was like, hey, so-and-so's niece called and said that she wasn't acting right. She wasn't able to like move her arm. She wasn't talking like she was talking and stuff. And I'm like, okay. I said, well, when did this happen? And so she was like, I just talked to her this morning. And I was like, okay. I said, but when did the change in status occur? That is what my question was. And so long story short, I ended up going in to talk to the patient, and I was like, I noticed that she wasn't really answering me like she wasn't eating. Therapy was actually the therapist was actually in there working with her, and she wasn't participating like she had normally been participating. And so I asked him, I was like, well, how was she? Because I didn't know if he was there over the weekend. And he was like, I don't know how she was over the weekend. And I'm like, okay. So I'm called the niece. I wanted to get a status of her. And her niece really couldn't tell me when the change in condition had occurred. So while I'm on the phone with the niece, I'm looking in the nurse's notes, and I'm like, okay, that should be able to tell me something. There was no documentation other than the patient refused her medications and that she had accepted Tylenol for pain for 48 hours. That was the only documentation. No documentation of vital signs, no documentation of any change in status. So I told the nurse that was on the unit, I said, go ahead and call. She had come to us for rehabilitation following a stroke. So she had had a stroke already. I was a high risk for another stroke. And so I told the nurse, I said, go ahead and she was a full code. So I had told the nurse, I said, go ahead and call 911. Let's go ahead and send her to the hospital since nobody really could tell. So we sent her to the hospital. The doctor calls from the emergency room and wants to know when the change of status occurred. And we literally had to tell this doctor, we have no idea. when the change of status occurred because nobody could answer, like nobody could tell us. So it looks, that doesn't look very good on us as nurses in that facility because we could not tell. This is why documentation is so important. What you think may be insignificant can turn out to be something that is pretty significant. Especially with stroke patients, right? Because depending on what type of stroke, whether it was ischemic or hemorrhagic, if it was an ischemic stroke, we only have a margin of window to give that clot buster, right? Before, it's not going to help anymore. And so, yeah, it was a pretty sketchy situation. It was pretty scary. Fortunately, when they like redid her scans and stuff, she had not had another stroke, which I was very thankful for that. But they did keep her in the hospital for another couple of days to kind of give her some, to observe, to make sure. But yeah, documentation is so important. Any response, any change in your patient's condition, it really needs to be documented, so that one nurse to the next, one person to the next.